All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee Talk. Today's topic is Zihirut, awareness. And this is something that we need to think more of as a society, as a people, as families, as individuals. You know, we want to live in a world where we have an awareness. An awareness, you'll see, is translated over here in Hebrew as Zihirut, and we'll try to understand why. So the first thing is you got to be careful not to fall into a spiritual pit. And the way in which we ensure that we don't fall into spiritual pits is by having the awareness of what we're trying to accomplish. So l'dugma, you see, most people live life and they let life happen. Okay, they'll respond to their environment based on where they are. They'll respond to the circumstance they're in. They'll respond to a person who's angry, and they'll respond in kind the same way. And that's not what Zihirut is about. Zihirut is about having the awareness, having a vision, a clear picture as to who we want to be, who we ought to be. What does a calmer, happier version of the self look like? Okay? With that, we can understand a little bit about what it means to be careful not to fall into a spiritual pit. How do I avoid falling into spiritual pits? By making sure my eyes are open wide. By making sure I have a clear understanding as to the path that I'm on. We need to have eyes everywhere. We need to have the clarity and the vision to make sure that we are growing every single moment and day. And this is a little bit what the Ramchal is talking about in Mesilat Yesharim. He says, relentlessly burdening yourself with tasks so that you haven't the time to reflect upon or consider where you are heading is one of the vices and the guiles of the Yetzer Hara. All too often in life, we are so distracted, especially in our high-powered, busy society, where we're running around all day, busying ourselves with the shopping and finding ourselves, nice vacations and running around looking. And again, you should have all those things. Go on nice vacations, buy nice things. I'm not saying chas v'shalom not to have those things, but that cannot become the bane of our existence, right? That is not why we're here on earth. We're here to do hopefully bigger and better things. And the way in which the Yetzer Hara works is that he's able to get us to do things where we're so busy following, looking, trying to occupy our time with silly things that we end up losing out on the most important parts of who we are, the most important parts of why we're here. And remember, we've said this several times, we're here so that we can become better versions of ourselves. We can become greater human beings. And maybe this will help explain this next part of here. This is a Gemara from Avodah Zarah. It's a famous Gemara by Rav Pinchas ben Yair. And he says as follows. He says that like this. He says that Torah study leads to care and the performance of mitzvot. Care and the performance of mitzvot leads to diligence in their observance. Diligence leads to cleanliness of the soul. Cleanliness of the soul leads to abstention from all evil. Abstention from all evil leads to purity and elimination of all base desires. Excuse me. Purity leads to piety. Piety leads to humility. Humility leads to fear of sin. And fear of sin leads to holiness. Holiness leads to divine spirit. And the divine spirit leads to the resurrection of the dead. And piety is greater than all of them, as it is stated. He brings a pasuk, "Az debata bechazon lachatzidecha." Then you will speak in a vision to your pious ones. What is the Gemara talking about? There is a building block of different midot that allow us to achieve the greatest experience that life has to offer. Okay, yes, going to some nice island and witnessing a beautiful sunset is inspiring and beautiful. But there's nothing more profound than you expressing what you are meant to accomplish in this world. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing a person who has invested time and energy into themselves to achieve greatness from within themselves. That is where all pleasure in life comes from. More pleasure than you could possibly imagine comes from the fact that you know that you accomplished what you were meant to accomplish in this world. There's nothing more painful than the opposite. There's nothing more painful in this world than knowing that you wasted your time, that you took potential, you took the opportunities that were given to you and you squandered them. There's nothing more painful than that. And therefore the Gemara over here in Avodah Zarah says, Rav Pinchas, who was a very deep rabbi, who taught us about the idea of personal development, he tells us that zihirut, okay, mivei lidei zrizut, right? You want to understand what leads to movement, what gets us to actually get up and go do things. So number one is Torah study. Talmud Torah keneged kulam, right? The idea that we are where we're humble enough to recognize that we have more information to learn, that we need to open ourselves up to the possibility of there being more opportunity for knowledge. That leads to zihirut, okay, to being diligent, to making sure that we have the awareness necessary to achieve our unique goals in this world. So this is a hierarchy here, a process. Where does it end at the end of it? It ends with something called the resurrection of the dead. When we speak about the resurrection of the dead, when I was a child, I often thought that was like the Michael Jackson thriller video of like bodies and zombies coming out of the earth and dancing in unison and whatever it is. And certainly that's definitely not what what the resurrection of the dead is. Okay, Tchiyat HaMeitim is something different. Tchiyat HaMeitim is a state where the body and the soul are reunited, and now the body and the soul are aligned philosophically and spiritually. Right now we believe the body and the soul have two different wants. The body wants to do nothing. The body wants to chill. The body wants to eat ice cream. The body wants a pizza. The body wants all the beautiful things the world has to offer, and we should have those things in moderation. But the soul has its own desires. The soul wants you to achieve greatness, holiness. It wants you to achieve righteousness. One is the gashmi and one is the ruchani, the spiritual versus the physical. But in the world of Tchiyat HaMeitim, there is a union, a partnership that happens where now the soul and the body want the same thing. Imagine what we could accomplish if we were completely aligned. The body and the soul's desires were aligned with one another. Yeah, unstoppable. The body can and it will. That's what Tchiyat HaMeitim is. But ultimately, we're talking about Ruach HaKodesh. What is Ruach HaKodesh? And I think this is an important idea. Let's just pause for a second. You see, Judaism is a very deep religion. And it's not just a religion of arbitrary laws and rules for the sake of creating rules just to occupy your time. There's supposed to be a binyan, a building process, that every single mitzvah, every single avodah, everything that I do leads me to Borei Olam, leads me to God. Imagine if I told you, follow these 15 steps, and you will know with certainty that there is a God. No more doubt. You would have this revelation of sorts, a Ruach HaKodesh, where you had this intimate kiss between your soul and the divine. That's profound. We've lost that as a result of the destruction of the temple. That's one of the things that we're mourning on Shivas B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. In the 3 weeks, one of the things that we are mourning is the fact that we no longer have this connection to God. It's broken. The system is broken. But if we were people who were pursuing spiritual truths, and we saw ourselves in a system of development where we're constantly growing towards this end, we would live in a reality where we would come very close to achieving prophecy again. That prophecy ultimately will come back, we believe, with Mashiach, and that prophecy will lead us into the state of Tchiyat HaMeitim, God willing, hopefully sooner than later. The Mesil Yesharim it continues, and he says as follows: the idea of watchfulness, of Zihirut, is for one to be cautious of his deeds and matters, namely, contemplating and watching over his deeds and ways whether they are good or evil, not abandoning his soul to the danger of destruction, God forbid, and not walking through the course of habit like a blind man in darkness. Zihirut means that I am aware, I have awareness of my situation, awareness of my Middot. How many people get into conversation and they're not even aware of the fact that they're triggered or triggering someone else? That you got, like, you're getting heated, you keep going and someone has to point out to you, like, calm down, like, pull yourself down. We're not even aware. But Zihirut is the awareness of your emotional and spiritual state. That's exactly what Zihirut is meant to do. Look at how David Mamon, the Rambam's son, says. He says as follows. He says Zihirut is connected to the notion of illumination. Right? This is derived the Hebrew root zahar, meaning to be bright. The same root shows up in the name of the mystical text of the Zohar, literally the shining. Right? By translating Zihirut as illumination rather than the more common caution, I want you to pay very close attention to the reality of every choice that confronts you in life, including both the profound life and death decisions, as well as the dilemma of what you have for dessert. Pursue high ethical conduct. The difference in my approach is that instead of calling our focus to the deeds themselves, I am inviting you to be aware of the quality of mind from which we make our assessment and choices. That is what Zehirut is. Zehirut is the conscious awareness of the state I'm in. So, for example, when we spoke about savlanut, of being patient, we said that the word savlanut comes from the word sovel, which means to carry the burden. Okay? That I'm going to endure the situation that I'm in. So how does that work? To be a savlan means that I have awareness that I'm being triggered, awareness right now that my boss is driving me crazy and I want to go ahead and say something to them, but I'm being savlan, I'm being patient by carrying the burden. I'm being patient by not responding to the situation I'm in right now. That is what savlanut looks like. Okay? That is how we are able to achieve. It is patience, but what does it look like? What does patience look like? Patience does not look like comatose.
Control yourself.
Patience is not just controlling yourself. Patience is the awareness that you're being triggered, the awareness that you're going through a difficulty. You want to respond, but you're not responding. You're being sovel. You're carrying the burden.
You're sovel.
But not just being not responding, because not responding could also mean comatose. I'm doing nothing. Right? I'm just being irresponsive. I'm going to ignore you. Being sovel is not ignoring someone. Being sovel means I'm aware,
yes,
I know, and I'm not going to respond right now because I know that this is the wrong response. That I'm not going to allow myself to be triggered emotionally and respond emotionally, but rather I'm going to wait before I'm aware of the fact that I'm being triggered, and I'm not going to respond because that's the right response right now. Always, I want to be in a situation where I'm going to respond cerebrally, intellectually, and not emotionally. 90% of all the trouble we get into in life is when we always emotionally.
Right.
That's where our troubles come from. Look at Rabbi Ephraim Becker. He wrote a book. He wrote a article in the Muslim Forum in New York in 2003. He says a person who is not living in the present moment, who is not experiencing the interaction that is current, cannot benefit from what Musar has to offer. When you lose the actual interaction, the possibility of growth disappears. It's all happening in here and the now. The quality of being present in the moment. Another valid way of conceptualizing Zehirut is the precondition for all Musar work. Because in order to direct ourselves and to make real choices, we need to be able to be aware of what arises in us before it comes into form. Zehirut is this awareness of the fact that I'm about to get triggered. I feel my blood pressure going up right now. I know what that means. This person is bothering me right now. I'm going to say something. I'm going to regret it. It's that awareness of. All too often we're not. It's yes. It's to be more careful. But it's not just about being more careful. There's a step before being more careful. It's the awareness of that something is happening inside of me. There's a movement, emotional movement happening inside of me. That is what we're trying to express in Zehirut. The Alter Navardik says this is the moment that an impulse is born. The second that you feel that triggering happen, that is where it comes from. This is what Zehirut is talking about. Cheshbon HaNefesh. Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Sher says it's obvious that if a person does not know and recognize his own character, he will find the study of Musar to be of no avail, for he has no idea what he lacks or what he must correct. Moreover, even one who recognizes and knows his negative character traits must find the study of Musar to be of no avail, for he could not undertake and follow Musar, the way of life, until he fully understands the process of thought formation and the modes of thought development. Meaning, how could we work on ourselves and develop ourselves if there's no awareness of the fact that my character sometimes does X, Y, and Z? You know, the quote I often like to use is that, all too often in life, we're sitting in our own, in a container, right? And we think we know what the label says, but we have a hard time reading the label when we're sitting inside the box itself, right? And this is life for most of us, where we live in our own little world, in our own minds, and we don't spend enough time creating an awareness of who we are, what we're like. The truth is, in this generation, mindfulness has become a practice that is more common, but in a very destructive way, in a selfish way, where it's only about myself, and only being aware of me. And that's not what the Musar is. Musar is the awareness of me so that I could respond to you. It's not about me sitting there selfishly only thinking about myself and my needs and my emotions. It's about how I can be aware of myself and my emotions so that I can respond to you in a way that is more meaningful and appropriate. That is what the point of Musar meditation is. Number 9. For many years, I took upon myself to focus my mind on a single thought, either a Torah or a prayer, for a specific period of time. By doing so, I eventually trained myself to be able to concentrate for an hour even more. What are we doing to build our awareness, our concentration of the self? So meditation is this. Meditation practice is about you controlling your breath. It's interesting. Why do you think meditation process starts with the controlling of the breath? Anyone know why? I just got to pause this. And when she calls me 2 or 3 times.
I think I know why, maybe.
Yeah,
because,
go ahead.
You rest your mind from all the thoughts of
right. So that's what I used to think, Marie, but that's not what it is. It's something much more deeper.
No?
Ready? I'll tell you. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Are you aware of your breathing right now?
No.
No. It's happening on its own. It's happening as an automatic response. I am not aware of my breathing. Okay? It's happening on itself. So the first thing I want to do when I want to get to awareness is take control over the automatic response. I want to control the automatic response, and therefore I'm going to smell the flowers and blow the soup. I'm inhaling and exhaling, okay, so that I can control the breath. If I want to control the mind, I first control the chitzoni, the external, my body. I'm controlling what is automatic, so that I can control what happens all too often automatically in my mind. And in that process, so I'm saying no. So just like you can control your breath, you can work on controlling your thoughts and your mind as well. And that's what he's saying over here. He's like, the way in which we do this is by focusing on a single thought. Work on 10 minutes a day of you not allowing your mind to be distracted and just being focused on one thing, one idea. Meditate on it. It's called mantra. Repetition, 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 repetition. I want to be calm. I want calmness, calm. And think of pictures that are calm. And bring those ideas. What's that? Torah does the same thing. Yoga can do the same thing. Yes.
The same like
it can be done. It can be done. There's different kinds of yoga, but yes, yoga can be used as a form of meditation. Stretching at the body, breathing, inhaling, getting yourself in different poses is the same idea. Calming and controlling the body and the mind. Okay, so we talk about this concept of building ourselves up and being aware of our external reality. There has to be an internal avoda that takes place. Okay, and if we're not willing and able to do this inner avoda, we'll lose ourselves to the body's wants and whims. There's a great book called it's called Habit by Charles Duhigg. Charles Duhigg is a famous author, and he writes about this idea of there being this gap between the mind and the body, and that most habits are formed when we allow the body to do things without thinking through the consequences of the habits of the action itself. And therefore, we build keystone habits. These are habits which are essential habits that have an impact on the whole entire body. So, for example, it's very hard to be organized in the morning if you're not organized before you go to bed. It's very hard to be organized if you don't make your bed right away when you get out of bed. It's very hard to be organized if you don't have external things you're organizing. If you're not organized externally, like we saw last week, right, then internally you're disorganized as well. So the idea of Zihirut is finding a habit of being aware. The awareness itself is an avoda. The fact that I'm aware of. So this is what the homework is. Okay, following these are the instructions of meditation that is specifically intended to create brighter inner awareness.
They said 4, 7, and 8. And the 1 and 8.
What's 4, 7, and 8?
Breathe.
4, 7, and 8. Yeah. People do that also. People do 3 and 8. There's different kinds of meditation on breath. Okay, so this is what you got to do. So every day for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, you got to do this for 5 to 10 minutes every day. Okay, now the way this meditation is done, it's done with your eyes closed, okay? And you got to read these instructions several times before you try the meditation so that you're able to actually implement them properly, okay? So you have to put yourself in a comfortable place where you won't be disturbed for 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Now, this is what you're going to do. You're going to close your eyes, okay? When you're closing your eyes, your mind is still very much aware and attentive. So your first task is to direct your inner attention to what's going on in your body, right? So that you can relax all the areas. So you do a scan. You start with the head, make sure everything is calm. Go all the way down from your head to your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your chin, your neck, down to your chest, your abdomen. You go all the way down to your toes and feel yourself doing a sweep. Make sure everything is calm. Calm everything down. Slow everything down in your mind. It's all happening in your mind. Close your eyes. You're thinking, you're meditating on just calming everything down in your mind. Okay? Then once you've directed your attention to everything that's happening in your body, okay, you are, by doing this, you're eliminating any blocks that can hinder the flow of consciousness, because that's exactly what tension and stress does. Stress and tension gets in the way of you being able to control your consciousness. Okay, now, start by feeling the attention in your toes. If you're really good, you could actually feel your heart beating in your toe. You've done this at night. If you're lying down flat, you could actually do a meditation where you're feeling the different places where your heart pulsates in your veins. You could actually do a meditation where you feel it everywhere, in your fingers, in your arm, in your feet, in your toes. You can feel it everywhere. You're not even aware of how much is happening in your body because we're so distracted. But the idea is to create this awareness. Okay, go from your toes to your feet. Go up your legs, okay? Think about your ankles, calves, thighs, okay? Wherever you feel any kind of tension, you want to make sure that it is relaxed, okay? Slowly move your awareness to your arms, hands, and fingers. Get to the neck, go to the chin, go to the forehead, your eyes, okay? Your awareness has come to this high level, okay? Right there, notice that there's different kind of light that's radiating through your eyelids. Okay, and for the rest of the meditation, your mind should lightly be attentively to receive the perception of this light that's coming through your eyelids. Now, I'm not asking you to analyze or think about the light that you're seeing, but your task is to simply to receive the perception of light into your eyes. That's all. You're just being aware of the fact that there's light that is coming through your eyelids. Okay, you're doing nothing but being aware. It's just neutral. Right? A neutral object like light is coming through, okay? And that is how this practice begins to buff your awareness of to a brighter, clear vision of yourself and the world around you. Okay, 5 minutes is all it takes. Okay, the mind can become restless. Thoughts are often racing through different parts of our mind, and they could get in the way of us accomplishing this. Different emotional states can get in the way as well. But the common distraction from meditation, okay, is really organizing your time. If you're organized and you're committing to the process of a daily meditation, you'll and also the fantasies that get in the way, right? But as long as you're committed to the meditation itself, you will find for a week, 5 minutes a day, do this for 5 minutes a day for 1 week, and you will be blessed with tremendous amount of clarity. You'll see it. I don't know if it's a blessing from above. I believe everything is a blessing from above, but I think these are certain things that are baked into our body, in our consciousness, that we're not aware of. Okay? Just deal with showing up. Most meditation practice, okay, does not happen simply because we are too distracted to make time for things that are important. If I told you that meditating 5 minutes a day would increase your lifespan by 5 years, okay, how motivated would you do to do that? Well, that's not enough motivation. How do I really know, right? But if I told you that it would improve your relationships immediately, within 3 days of doing this, for sure, you'll see a massive change in your relationships with the people around you, and more importantly, the relation with yourself. You'll have less tension inside of you. You'll find yourself living in a life of more clarity. Awareness is that path. Having a zihirut means that I am carefully spending effort and time of living in a world of awareness. I can't stress enough how this is the foundation necessary to build good Middot. You think you're a good person? I'm sure you're a good person. right? I'm sure you're doing great things. But real greatness does not come from people who are leaning on their natural talents and their natural predisposition of their nature. But real greatness comes from the people who work beyond their predispositions to curate the best Middot within themselves, to choose how they want to express the best versions of themselves. This is what made the Avot so unique. You want to understand what made Abraham great, not because he had a calm predisposition, he was just a nice person. He worked on being someone who does chesed all day. It was an avodah for him. He had to work on being someone who was great. Yaakov was tiferet, was balance, right? We spoke about menuchat hanefesh. Menuchat hanefesh is not just sitting on a couch and being chill and smoking a hookah, and taking a nice shot of tequila. That's not what menuchat hanefesh is. Menuchat hanefesh is, like we said, the example we gave was a surfer riding a wave. Riding a wave means that there's a lot of tension underneath you, but you're finding balance in the situation that you're in. You're not just going to go ahead and express yourself immediately. You're not going to go ahead and respond. You're going to be aware of the situation. But these traits that we're discussing require a knowledge, which is what we're doing here. I'm bringing up the ideas before you. But the class is just a class. What makes a class meaningful is the internalizing of the subject and the idea. If you're not willing to do that, you're wasting your time. And what's interesting is that these classes and conversations, they happen once. I'll tell you what's going to be happening for most people today, or whoever's going to watch this whenever you watch this. You'll agree, and you'll hear a lot of truths, and you'll walk away, and you'll forget about the whole entire topic. It'll be buried somewhere in the recesses of your mind. But there's some people here who are going to take the idea, they're going to take the sheet, they're going to take the concept, and they're going to write it down, and they're going to try to figure out a way of implementing these concepts into their reality so that they can live a life of meaning and greatness. That's it. The Torah is not about restricting you in any way. The Torah is about freeing you to live a life of happiness and meaning. Are there restrictive parts to it? Yes. But like in all things in life, boundaries help create holiness. Boundaries help create a positive environment for us to develop ourselves in. Right? The greatest expression of the boundary is a marriage. Right? The kedusha of marriage comes from the boundaries that the marriage sets up between the two people. I can't do whatever I want when I'm married. I can't say whatever I want. I can't go wherever I want. There are boundaries that are there. The boundaries that are in there in marriage are meant to protect husband and wife, to protect society, protect community, protect family and children and so on and so forth. We believe that there should be no boundaries because we want the freedom to do whatever we want, go wherever we want, because we think we could say whatever we want and take whatever we want. But this is a mistake. If we live in a world where we took whatever we want and have whatever we want and given to whatever we want, we are not creating a future for our children and grandchildren. Okay? If anything, we're destroying the future. Because greatness, happiness, success comes from restraint. Success comes from having boundaries. Success, these are the loudest birds ever. Success, I think they're agreeing with me. They're like, yes, preach, brother. So, success comes from this notion that there are boundaries within ourselves, and with boundaries within ourselves, but more importantly, those boundaries come from our awareness of the boundaries. Zehirut is that awareness, that I'm creating a sense of limitations for myself, that I'm not going to go ahead and just give into my emotion, not going to give into my desire, not going to give into the things that I want for me. There's a boundary that is there, and Bezrat Hashem, I can again maintain a life of meaning and happiness and success. May we be blessed to achieve that goal. May we be blessed with the ability of having that recognition and that ability of having the awareness necessary so that we could achieve so much more. Thank you so much for listening. I'll take your questions. Take your questions now.